When a friend asks to borrow money, you don't lose money. You lose the friendship, and you already knew it before you said yes. The moment those 5 words hang in the air, "Can I borrow some money?" the friendship doesn't end with a fight. It ends with a slow, quiet disappearance that neither person fully understands. Ghost is protection. Here's what you'll understand by the end of this video: why the people who ghost after a loan request may not be the villains in this story. They might be doing the only thing that makes any psychological sense, but the reason behind it runs deeper than shame, deeper than discomfort, deeper than anything you've heard before. And it was understood long before you or I ever lent a single dollar to someone we loved. If you've ever lent money to someone close to you and watched them quietly drift away, or if you've been the one who borrowed and found yourself unable to face the person who helped you, if you're ready for an uncomfortable truth about money and human connection, stay until the very end. This was made exactly for you. Money poisons, silence protects. The hidden psychology behind people who ghost friends who borrow money reveals what the financially wise figured out long before everyone else. That lending to a friend doesn't test the relationship, it quietly ends it. And the ghost isn't the ending, it's the autopsy. Here's what nobody talks about when money enters a friendship. The moment your friend looks at you and says those 5 words, "Can I borrow some money?" something invisible shifts. A transaction has been proposed, and transactions don't happen between equals. They happen between a creditor and a debtor. The friendship just became a contract. Think about the last time someone asked you for money. Even before you answered, something changed. You started calculating, not just the amount, but the risk, the probability of repayment, the awkwardness of ever asking for it back. You began to see your friend through a different lens, not as someone you love, but as someone who might owe. And here's the psychological truth nobody names. The human brain cannot hold both realities simultaneously. You can be someone's creditor or their equal friend, not both at the same time. The brain simply doesn't work that way. Research in social psychology shows that financial obligations between people who consider themselves equals create what researchers call status asymmetry, a gap in perceived power that neither party consciously chose, but both deeply feel. Money changes everything. You already knew this, you've lived it. What you didn't know was the science behind why it feels so irreversibly wrong, and what the ghost is actually doing about it. But to understand the ghost, we first need to understand the shame. Because what happens inside the borrower's mind, that's where this story gets truly disturbing. But wait, before we talk about the person who ghosts, we need to understand the person who borrowed. Because their psychology is the engine driving everything that follows. When someone borrows money from a friend, they don't just take money. They take a piece of the relationship as collateral, and deep down they know it. The moment the transaction happens, the borrower enters what psychologists call a shame loop. Every interaction with the lender becomes colored by one recurring thought: I owe them. I am less than them right now. The brain reads unpaid debt the same way it reads social threat, with elevated cortisol, avoidance behaviors, and an overwhelming need to escape the source of discomfort. This isn't weakness. This is neurobiology. The amygdala processes debt shame the same way it processes physical danger. The borrower literally begins experiencing the lender as a threat to their nervous system, so they avoid the calls, they cancel plans, they become distant. That creates shame, and the lender, confused, hurt, watching the friendship slowly evaporate, wonders what they did wrong. They gave generously, they helped, and they got silence in return. If this pattern sounds uncomfortably familiar, hit like and subscribe to keep uncovering the hidden psychology of money and human behavior. Because what the lender goes through, that's an entirely different kind of trap, and it might be the more painful one. Here's the dark irony most people never see. The person who gave the money, the generous one, is often in more psychological pain than the borrower, because the lender didn't just lose money. They lost the freedom to be authentic with their friend. Think about it. Every time you see someone who owes you money, you face a silent choice. Do I bring it up, or do I pretend it doesn't exist? Do I mention it casually? Do I hint? Whatever you choose. You've just put on a performance. The relationship is no longer natural. It's managed. Authenticity is the first casualty of debt between friends. The lender starts walking on eggshells. They feel the awkwardness after mentioning something they just bought. They avoid talking about vacations or new purchases because, consciously or not, they don't want to seem like they're rubbing it in. The debt creates a zone of silence around money topics that slowly expands until silence becomes the dominant language of the entire friendship. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. This ancient wisdom wasn't just describing financial systems. It was describing what happens inside a friendship. Both people feel it, neither names it. And here's the question neither of them can ask out loud. What if the ghost isn't cruel? What if going silent is actually the most honest response to an unbearable dynamic? Because that answer leads somewhere most people would never expect. The ghost, the sudden silence, the read receipts with no reply, the friend who just disappears. We've been conditioned to read this as cruelty, as abandonment, as proof that the person never truly cared. But what if the psychology is far more complex and far more human than that? The ghost. When someone ghosts after a money situation, there are typically two profiles. The first, the borrower who ghosts the lender, consumed by shame, choosing disappearance over the unbearable discomfort of facing their debt. The second, and this is the one nobody talks about, is the lender who ghosts the borrower. The lender who goes silent is not abandoning the person. They're abandoning the dynamic the loan created, the creditor-debtor tension sitting beneath every conversation, the forced performance of a friendship that no longer feels authentic. Here's what the lender knows intuitively, even if they've never put it into words. The friendship as it was is already over. The moment money changed hands, the relationship fundamentally changed. Ghosting isn't ending the friendship. The friendship ended the moment the loan happened. The ghost is just the acknowledgement of that reality. Silence is the truth. But here's what this tells us about the truly wealthy. The people who never end up in this situation in the first place. They solved this problem with a principle so counterintuitive that most people dismiss it the moment they hear it. Money doesn't change people, it reveals them. You've heard that phrase. But let me offer you a sharper version. Money doesn't reveal character, it reveals relationship architecture. What I mean is this: when financial stress enters a friendship, it doesn't introduce something new. It illuminates the invisible structure that was already there. The power dynamics, the unspoken expectations, the hidden resentments, the difference in values that both people were too polite to name. A friendship between two people with fundamentally different relationships to money is already built on unstable ground. One person thinks lending to a friend is an act of love. The other thinks asking a friend for money is perfectly normal. These two belief systems were always incompatible. The loan just made it impossible to ignore. Money is the X-ray machine of every relationship you have. Studies from the Journal of Economic Psychology show that financial conflicts between friends are among the highest predictors of relationship dissolution. Higher than betrayal, higher than geographic distance, sometimes even higher than infidelity. Because with money, both parties feel wronged simultaneously. The borrower feels shame and pressure. The lender feels disrespected and used. Both are in genuine pain. Neither is entirely wrong. This is why the ghost happens so consistently. But there's something even more uncomfortable waiting beneath this truth. Something that puts a precise name to exactly what's being destroyed in every single one of these situations. Let's name the thing that's been operating silently this entire time: status asymmetry. When two people are friends, there's an implicit social contract. We are equals. We may have different jobs, different incomes, different lives. But inside this friendship, we stand on equal ground. That equality is the invisible foundation of genuine connection. A loan fractures that foundation. The moment you lend money to a friend, they neurologically become your debtor. Not metaphorically, neurologically. The brain registers the shift in social hierarchy. Both people feel it, not as a clear thought, but as a subtle change in comfort. Eye contact feels slightly different. Casual conversations carry an undertone. Laughter sounds fractionally forced. Something invisible watches every exchange. Research by social psychologist Robert Cialdini confirms that reciprocity is one of the deepest drivers of human behavior. When reciprocity is broken, when one person owes and has not repaid, the relationship becomes structurally unstable. It cannot rest in equilibrium until the debt is resolved. A friendship founded on business is better than a business founded on friendship. Equality is always fragile. Rockefeller understood this viscerally. The wealthy don't mix money and friendship, not because they're cold, but because they understand what money does to connection at the neurological level. And their solution to all of this, it's elegant, it's simple, and most people would never have the discipline to actually do it. Here's a truth that separates people who build genuine wealth from those who don't, and it has nothing to do with investment returns or income levels. Wealthy people have an unspoken rule about money and friendship. It's almost never written in any book, rarely spoken out loud. But if you pay close attention, you'll see it operating in the behavior of virtually every financially successful person you've ever known. Gift it. They never lend to friends, ever. When a close friend comes with a financial need, they make one instant internal decision: can I give this as a gift? With zero expectation of return. If yes, they give freely and never mention it again. If no, they decline with warmth and without apology. They refuse to create debt between themselves and someone they love. This isn't coldness. This is deep wisdom about human psychology. They understand that the moment a debt is created between friends, the relationship fundamentally changes. So they either absorb the cost as a gift, preserving equality, or they protect both parties by saying no. Warren Buffett has articulated this principle across decades. The idea is simple. The most expensive thing you can do is lend money to a friend and lose both the money and the person. Not because friends are untrustworthy, but because the structure of debt does something to human connection that generosity simply does not. And understanding what that something is, that's where the entire psychology of the ghost finally clicks into place. Now we arrive at the most counterintuitive part of this entire psychology. The part that will make you rethink every money situation you've ever been in. The ghost is not a betrayal. It is a withdrawal symptom. Here's what I mean. When someone lends money within a friendship, they've introduced a toxin into the relationship, not because of bad intentions, but because of the structural reality of what debt does to human connection. The toxin is slow. It works quietly. Weeks pass, then months. Conversations get shorter. Plans get canceled. Laughter sounds fractionally more forced. The friendship slowly dies, not with a fight, but with a fade. What looks like abandonment is actually metabolized pain on both sides. The ghost is what happens when one or both parties can no longer hold the weight of the toxin. They don't ghost the person. They ghost the dynamic, the unbearable tension between who they were to each other and who they've become since the loan arrived. Debt between friends doesn't break the bond. It slowly suffocates it. Think about the friendships you've watched dissolve over money. Did it end in one explosion, or did you watch a slow cooling? A drift that nobody could quite name. That drift is the toxin at work. The fight about money was never really about money. Recognizing this pattern is the first step, but there is one final truth, the one that explains every ghost you have ever witnessed, and it is waiting in the very next segment. And here it is, the truth that financially wise people have always known. The insight that explains every ghost, every slow drift, every friendship that quietly died after a loan. Protection. The person who ghosts after a money situation is doing something the other person may never have the courage to do. They are choosing not to perform a friendship that no longer exists in its original form. Because here's the brutal reality. A friendship built on unpaid debt is not a friendship. It's an obligation wearing a friendship's face. And some people, unconsciously, instinctively, would rather lose the ghost of a friendship than pretend a healthy one exists where debt has replaced it. The ghost isn't abandoning the person. The ghost is refusing to perform the corpse. The wealthy understood this first. That's why they don't lend, not because they're selfish, but because they are protecting both parties from a dynamic that destroys without anyone choosing destruction. Before borrowing money from a friend, decide which you need more. Ghost is protection. This changes everything about how we judge the people who disappeared. They weren't abandoning the friendship. They were refusing to maintain the fiction that debt had constructed in its place. You think the ghost is an act of cruelty or an act of painful honesty? Comment cruelty or honesty below. I want to know where you stand on this, and if this shifted something in you. About money, about people who disappeared, about loans you've made or received. Share this with as many people as you possibly can. This truth needs to reach further than any one of us can carry it alone. So what do you actually do with all of this? If the loan destroys the friendship and the ghost is the inevitable consequence, what is the real alternative? The answer is the same one that wealthy people arrived at long before the rest of us. And it is simpler than you expect. 1. Give it as a gift, or don't give at all. 2. Never lend what you cannot afford to lose. 3. Protect the relationship before the transaction. When a friend asks to borrow money, stop asking, will they pay me back? Instead, ask yourself, can I give this freely, with zero expectation of return? and genuinely be at peace if I never see it again, if the answer is yes. Give it, name it a gift, remove the debt entirely. Preserve the equality between you, if the answer is no. Protect the friendship with honest words. I love you too much to put money between us. Most people will respect you more for that boundary than they ever would for a loan that slowly poisoned everything between you. The most generous thing you can do is sometimes refuse to lend. Gift or refuse. Now you have the full picture. The ghost isn't cruelty. It's the last honest act of a relationship that debt already killed, and the only dignified thing left to do was stop pretending otherwise. The hidden psychology behind every ghost was never really about money. It was always about protection. Of the self, of the other, and of whatever genuine love existed before the loan arrived and quietly changed everything. You came here asking why someone would ghost a friend who borrowed money. Now you have the complete answer. And it is not what anyone told you it was. It wasn't cruelty. It wasn't indifference. It was the last honest act of a relationship that money had already dismantled from the inside. Lend money to an enemy, and thou wilt gain him. To a friend, and thou wilt lose him. The financially wise don't lend to friends because they understand what you now understand. Lending doesn't test a friendship. It ends it, quietly, without a single fight. One unanswered message at a time. Gift it or refuse. The person who ghosted you after a loan may have been the only one honest enough to stop performing a connection that debt had quietly replaced with obligation. And the person you ghosted, maybe now you understand what you were instinctively trying to protect. Your relationship with money reveals your relationship with people. Your mind is either programmed for wealth or for the patterns that quietly destroy it. Now you know how to reprogram both. If you made it this far, comment debt dissolved, because you're one of the rare few who finally understands what money really does between people who love each other. Your mind is either programmed for wealth or poverty. Now you know how to reprogram it.